One fact for every episode of Doctor Who. Part 1. The William Hartnell Era. An Unearthly Child. This episode was written by Anthony Coburn, and the original script was quite different. Coburn's 19-page draft script was entitled Doctor Who and the Tribe of Gum, and it was reasonably close in structure to the finished programme. It featured the teachers discussing their strange pupil after classes, talking to her, following her home, meeting the Doctor in the junkyard, entering the Doctor's vessel, and travelling back in time. In this version, domestic science teacher Miss McGovern and headmaster C.E. Chesterton became intrigued by the strange knowledge and inconsistent behaviour of pupil Suzanne Foreman, who lived with her grandfather, a man who Chesterton knew he had met but could not recall. Suzanne enjoyed listening to the music of Ollie Typhoon, whose real name, Chesterton pointed out, was Fred Grubb. The teachers followed the girl into the junkyard where she appeared to live and encountered Doctor Who. He wears a Napoleonic trench coat, a woolen balaclava, mittens, fur-lined boots, and on top of the balaclava is an Astrakhan hat. Doctor Who explained how he had met Chesterton before, but erased his memory by giving him a cigarette containing a special drug.
Smoke weed every day.
Inside the police box found in the yard was a vast spaceship interior, which Suzanne explained was a change and dimensional electronic selector and extender. Yes, the TARDIS was originally called the Cadise. Well, I'm glad they changed the name. Whatever it was, it could travel in space and time. Some dialogue referred to the Paladins, who had attacked the Doctor's race. Docky Hoomstead, whom Suzanne said was 3 times Chesterton's age, set his vessel in motion and it hurtled back 195,000 years to a barren desert, where it was seen by Paleolithic tribespeople led by a figure called Gum. The Daleks. Terry Nation told Doctor Who magazine this: "I've been a cinema goer all my life, and loved going to what were rated in those days as horror movies. Whatever the creature was, somewhere in your heart of farts, you know it was a man dressed up. So my first decision was to take the legs off." He recalled being inspired by the Georgian state dancers. This troupe, formed by Iliko Sukishvili and Nino Ramishvili in 1945, had performed the traditional dances of what was then the Soviet Republic of Georgia, on tour since the 1930s, visiting the UK in 1959 and making television appearances. In particular, Terry remembered the manner in which the long skirts worn by the ladies had made them appear to glide around the stage. The Edge of Destruction. This serial was originally going to be the final story of Doctor Who. The show was commissioned for 13 episodes. During pre-production of An Unearthly Child, the controller of the BBC at the time, Donald Baverstock, did cancel the series with The Brink of Disaster being the finale, but he later changed his mind. Marco Polo. Recording of Part 7 was delayed when the fire marshal voiced concerns about the positioning of some equipment in the studio. The situation made the team even more annoyed about their studio being outdated. Mervyn Pinfield, the associate producer, wrote to Donald Wilson, head of serials at the BBC Drama Department, to complain about the studio's cramped conditions being made worse by its apparent use as a storage facility. The Keys of Marinus. In the original camera script, when Barbara commented that the TARDIS scanner is not in colour, the Doctor replied, "I was working on that on your planet. You'll remember the first time we met. My colour rays aren't mixing. I went along to the British Broadcasting Corporation, but they were internally secretive." "Was that the day you came back in such a bad temper, grandfather?" asked Susan, to which the old man snapped, "I never lose my temper. The Aztecs. Part 4 was broadcast the day after Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life in prison for protesting against racial segregation in South Africa. The Sensorites. The cliffhanger with the Sensorite floating in space outside is similar to a scene in an episode of The Twilight Zone, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. The Reign of Terror. The scene where the Doctor is walking to Paris was filmed on the Isle of Wight. This is the very first time that Doctor Who was filmed on location. Planet of Giants. In order to create the illusion of the cast being tiny, designer Ray Cusick built giant sets and props such as the sink that the Doctor and Susan almost drowned in. When they all stand in front of a dead man's face, as you do, that's a giant printed picture. The Dalek invasion of Earth. The man Susan falls in love with in this story is named David Campbell. The novelisation mistakenly calls him David Cameron, decades before the real David Cameron became the UK's Prime Minister. The Rescue. Before she started playing Vicky, Maureen O'Brien met Sydney Newman, who told her, "We were thinking of having you cut your hair and dye it black," to which she replied, "Why don't you just get Carol Ann Ford back?" The Romans. This story was referenced in the 2008 episode The Fires of Pompeii, when the 10th Doctor tells Donna that he had nothing to do with the Great Fire of Rome.
It was totally his fault.
The Web Planet. This is one of Peter Capaldi's favourite stories.
The web.
The Crusade. Vicky wonders if King Richard the Lionheart will ever reach Jerusalem. He never did. By the end of the year 1191, he came within a few miles of the city. By January 1192, Richard realised he would never be able to take over Jerusalem anyway, so he ordered a full retreat to Ascalon. The Space Museum. The Morlocks were named because of their moronic attitude. Their leader, Lobos, derived his name from lobotomy, and the natives of the planet were originally called Thals. That's Thals with an R, not to be confused with the Thals without an R. The name of the planet Xeros derives from the Greek word for dry. The Chase. On Sunday the 10th of January 1965, Terry Nation submitted a 5-page synopsis of his idea for The Chase. This synopsis was titled Snow Job. This is funny because Snow Job is also the name of a Crash Bandicoot level. No other reason. The Time Meddler. I hardly know her. Contrary to popular belief, Peter Butterworth was not cast as the monk because of his roles in Carry On films. He didn't appear in any until November 1965. Galaxy 4. The third episode of this serial, Airlock, achieved the highest ratings of any episode between the last episode of The Web Planet and the last episode of The Three Doctors. Airlock is one of the few classic episodes to have ranked in the top 15 shows during the week of its initial broadcast. Mission to the Unknown. This story was recreated by students, graduates and staff of the University of Central Lancashire. They did it exactly how it would have been done in the 60s. This version of the story was released on the official Doctor Who YouTube channel on the 9th of October 2019. The Mythmakers. In the short story Apocrypha Bipedium, the 8th Doctor and Charlotte Pollard met Vicky, who didn't know about regeneration, so assumed 8 was a younger version of 1. The Daleks' Master Plan. The 7th episode of this serial, The Feast of Stephen, is Doctor Who's very first Christmas episode. That's where this iconic clip came from.
Well, we so rarely get a chance to celebrate, but this time we must.
Celebrate?
Yes. It's Christmas. Don't you remember the police station, Christmas?
So it was, yes.
Here's a toast. A happy Christmas to all of us.
Same to you, Doctor. Sir.
Incidentally, a happy Christmas to all of you at home.
The Massacre.
Of St. Bartholomew's Eve.
This serial not only has no surviving footage, it also has no telesnaps. The only available visuals are promotional images. The Ark. It was the first Doctor Who story to be filmed out of order, and later edited into sequence. This is common practice now, but it was groundbreaking at the time. The Celestial Toymaker. When the King of Hearts does the eeny meeny miny mo, he does not say catch a lion by its toe. He replaced the word lion with the N-word. This scene is muted in the 2023 animated version. The Gunfighters. Anthony Jacobs, who played Doc Holliday, was the father of Matthew Jacobs, and brought his son onto the set. Matthew Jacobs grew up to be a writer, and wrote the 1996 TV movie, The Savages. This missing story was the last one to be animated. It was released on DVD and Blu-ray on the 24th of March 2025. The War Machines. In the opening credits, Kit Pedler's name is misspelled as Pedlar with an A. It should be with an E. I don't know what caused this, but I assume the editor just didn't know who Kit was and so didn't ask him how to spell it. The Smugglers. This story is more violent than most others. Because of this, the ABC edited some scenes out when The Smugglers was released in Australia. They then decided to preserve the footage they removed rather than preserving the actual episodes. This is why The Smugglers has a few seconds of surviving footage. The 10th Planet. Doctor Who magazine once stated that there was an attempt to colorise this story, and they also said a test regeneration was filmed during production of The Smugglers. However, neither of these things are true. This was DWM's April Fool's joke.